So let's dive right into it, into the 9 lies that marriages believe. So the first lie, I think this is the most well-known lie that we all have heard, is, and they lived happily ever after. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because if you've been married more than 5 minutes, you already know that this isn't true. Life hits hard. Life is not always fun. You guys are not always going to see eye to eye, and the rest of your married life together after saying I do is not just going to be unlimited bliss. It's going to take hard work and it's going to take commitment, and it can be beautiful the whole time, but it doesn't mean it's just happily ever after. You can have joy in your marriage for the entirety of your marriage while not always being happy. I think there's a large difference between joy and happiness, but that's a video for another time. Love lie number 2. This one was a shocker, and I think many of you will be shocked as well. Love lie number 2 is 1 + 1 = 1. Sounds pretty Christianese, right? We are taught that the two become one on their wedding day. That is true, literally and figuratively. That is taken a little too far, and this book would agree in the sense that 1 + 1 does not equal 1. 1 + 1 = 3. When you get married, now you have 3 different kind of entities in your life. So you have you, the one, you're a full individual responsible to yourself and God, +1, so the same goes for your spouse, actually equals 3, because now you have this whole independent entity, which is your marriage. And that is a way that you guys both act and respond to each other in your marriage. That is responsible to God, and that is a joint effort and unit that you guys work together. So you have to work on yourselves individually and work on your marriage as a couple. The thought process that 1 + 1 = 1 kind of implies that you lose yourself when you get married. And that can be a really unhealthy line of thinking and is addressed a lot in family marriage therapy, as far as coming to therapy and saying like, I've just lost who I am. Well, yeah, you kind of believed a lie that when you got married, you were just melded into one human being. That's not really possible. And again, without going into too much details, and the two become one is a little bit literal as far as when you get married and you consummate the marriage, not so much losing who you are. Now you're basically one individual. I think it's a really important distinction to make because we don't think about it that way, and we just believe like, well, now I'm one with my spouse. In a healthy way, you're one unit as a married couple, but in an unhealthy way, that can get really dangerous really quickly. Number 3, all you need is love. It talks about in the book the cliches of all you need is love by the Beatles, and if we have love, then we can be happy and we can have success and we can have a fulfilled life. Again, this is a lie distorted because that is a biblical principle. All you need is God's love. All you need is to just be content in your relationship with God and experience His love and just continually be giving love to others. But where the world will twist that is all you need is love from your spouse. And when we don't get that, we get extremely discouraged. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with my marriage? What happened to those butterflies I used to get? Because when I used to feel that way, that was all I needed in life. Young love, and that's why they say your first love, it can make you do crazy things because of these intense hormonal reactions that we have. And yet, those don't really last long term. And then we believe, well, I did have love and that was all I needed, and now I must not have love. And one, just the truth that all you need is God's love, but when you relay that same kind of image to your spouse, it gets dangerous pretty fast. Love lie number 4. This is one of my favorites. I would say it's tied so far with 1 + 1 = 1. This is something you hear a lot in the Christian community, and it is a lie. So when we read the Bible and we read about Jesus, we hear about how sacrificial He was. He even gave up His life for us. He gave up His Son. God gave up His Son for us. Everything about God's relationship to us is a sacrificial love. And yes, we are called to love others like God has loved us. However, none of us are capable of being God or loving selflessly like He does. In fact, our human nature is pretty corrupt and selfish at heart. So when you hear somebody in a marriage saying, and I've lost who I am, and I have just done so much sacrificing, it's always been about them, I have not done anything for me, and you hear this bitterness, and it's like all these things they've done for their spouse or their family has just led them to be bitter and feel unfulfilled. And there is a difference. This book challenges that thinking of, I need to sacrifice myself continuously like you're a martyr, to change that verbiage to invest. We invest in things that we love and we care about. If you care about your health, you invest in your health by working out and eating healthy. If you invest in your marriage, you're taking the time to learn and grow as a couple. When you care about something, you invest in it. And yes, sometimes that looks like giving up your time or giving up a resource that you could have used. But when you change the verbiage to investing in those that you love and care about, it's no longer this bitter, martyr-like sacrifice where later in life you're going to feel like you gave everything and received nothing in return. When you invest in things, it is a loving effort to build and to pour into someone or something else other than yourself. And so it talks, I'm not going to get too much into detail, and the verbiage as far as sacrificing versus investing, but I think the main point of what it's trying to get across is dropping that mentality of, I'm just called not even to do anything for myself and invest, because you are a child of God. You were given talents and abilities that God wants you to use. God doesn't want you to be on empty all the time, just constantly outpouring. You're not a full person who can give the best of yourself because you're just running on zero all the time. You must meet each other's needs. This one was one that I have heard before, but may still be shocking to some of you. We were not created in our marriage to meet each other's needs. Matt cannot meet my needs. He does a lot of the time, and there are times where he just, as a man, he can't meet all my needs. And as cliche as it sounds, the only person who can meet all of our needs is God. And so this chapter talks about when we feel discontent, a lot of times it's just our own expectations of desiring certain things and kind of being let down by those expectations. It's not our spouse's job. We are responsible to be healthy individuals pouring into each other as full human, like filled fully by God and by healthy things, and then being able to pour that healthiness into each other and build each other up. Not two individuals that are running on empty, just waiting for the other person to meet their need and to build them up. Our differences are irreconcilable. This is where couples believe that if they have different opinions, rather than respecting and honoring those different opinions, they try to fight them. So it is a known fact that most of the time opposites attract. That is because we subconsciously see something in another human being that we don't personally have, and that attracts us to them because they have a strength that we are missing, and it kind of goes into that idea of, well, we can make each other whole because our strengths and our weaknesses coincide. Again, see how it starts out pretty healthy, but then it distorts itself because then you're relying on each other to meet each other's needs, or you're thinking later in a marriage, I thought these differences were great, I thought I loved this about the other person, but now I'm just not liking our differences, and they cause us to have conflict all the time. This book would challenge that differences don't need to result in conflict. They can result in a mutual agreement, understanding, and respectful view that there are differences, and that you love and honor and respect those differences. It doesn't need to be, your marriage isn't a speech and debate team where you fight one another on the things that you disagree about. Your partner's differences is probably what led you to marry them. And those differences can make you balanced and be that when we talked about 1 + 1 actually equals 3, that unit can actually be whole and full because it's functioning in the strengths of one another. And so differences doesn't mean conflict and fighting. And that doesn't mean that your differences are irreconcilable. Line number 7, I'm going to make you love me. I think that I definitely have fallen for this love lie. And I think that Matt and I both have fallen for this love lie, because when you start to feel hard times come on, or it can be in such little, like in a day, in a week, you're like, man, I'm not having those lovey feelings, or feeling like on cloud 9, or I didn't get butterflies when Matt took me to coffee. What is wrong? Why doesn't he love me? What can I do to make our love stronger? And again, that is good to be concerned about your marriage and feel like you have things that your marriage feels off and you're going to make efforts to make it better. That is healthy. Saying that, what can I do to make the love be here, or make us feel more in love with each other. You can't manufacture love. Now, the kind of love that God calls us to have towards others is an action and is a choice. I'm going to choose to love someone else even when they've wronged me. But I'm talking about like the romantic feelings of we go on a date and I love this person and I feel so great. You can't manufacture that. And that's where people end up falling into affairs and into bad situations, because you lose that with your spouse and then you feel that love with someone else. What they talk about in this chapter is you can't make someone love you, but what you can do, which will change your marriage, is create a safe and nurturing environment where both of you feel comfortable to be who you are and know that you are loved, and that choice kind of loved I'm talking about, and there's no judgment and you're there for one another. Building that safe and nurturing place, that's what everyone wants in their hearts. Everyone wants a home life that you feel accepted and known fully. That's basically what intimacy is, being known fully and being loved deeply. And love deeply in that sense I'm talking about, where it's the choice and it's not wavering based off feelings. And they talk about how those feelings of love, the more safe and nurturing that your home and your marriage is, then it naturally comes, but the focus is not manufacturing it or forcing it to happen. Your love is driving me crazy. This chapter and this lie was talking about when we blame our partners of like, I would be okay, but the way that you act drives me crazy and it forces me to be someone I don't like to be or feel certain feelings I don't like to feel. Remember our theme of how we are all individuals that are responsible as grown adults to ourselves and to God first. No one else can make you act a certain way. Your spouse is gonna have things that drive you nuts. And your spouse is gonna have times where they aren't acting the way that you'd want them to, or maybe even appropriately. However, in those times, we're called to resort back to our own, like to be healthy individuals, to lean on God and not blame our spouse of like, well, my spouse is doing X, Y, Z, and that's just why I act this way or I reacted this way. That's not how it works. At the end of the day, we're each responsible for our own actions. And I think once me and Matt started believing that, our conflicts or our disagreements became so much easier to handle, because if one of us started getting a little out of line in a disagreement, and was like, if I was being a little bit too emotional or Matt was having a little bit of a short temper, instead of feeding into him being like, I'm gonna react because you're acting this way, you're making me crazy, I can say like, I love you, I'm gonna choose right now to take the higher route, even though it's hard and I wanna react, but at the end of the day, I have that choice, regardless of how he's responding or how I'm responding. You win some, you lose some. That's love lie number 9. The truth of it is, there shouldn't be, and there doesn't have to be, any losers in marriage. In marriage, when you both create that safe, nurturing environment, you're both taking full responsibility for yourselves, you both are leaning on the Lord and getting your needs met and true love from the Lord, there doesn't need to be a win-lose scenario. There can be a win-win scenario. That love lie kind of encompasses all of them, because that kind of feeds into the sacrificing love lie, right? Like, oh, let's choose a silly example. My husband wants to go to sushi tonight. I don't like sushi, but I am going to sacrifice for him because that is what he wants, and I am going to be a martyr. And then later on in the week, you're noticing you're bitter because you did this thing for your spouse and maybe didn't get returned. That's a win-lose. You're saying I'll let you win and I'm gonna lose. Where in marriage, there has to be something you guys agree on. Again, you might not agree on everything and that's okay, but there has to be something. Maybe you guys both like Italian food, but every other type of food you disagree on. Then why not create a win-win scenario where that night you go get something you guys both like to eat? And although one may, and that's where, yes, you can invest in one another and make decisions that are beneficial to the other person and maybe not so much you, and that's called when you have the heart of investing, I'm going to choose to do something for you, where right now it does require me to give up something I want or desire, but it doesn't need to be win-lose or lose-lose scenarios. Why not make every interaction in your marriage a win-win? And I used a silly example about going to dinner, but I mean in the big things too. You and your spouse can't agree on a huge topic, when to have kids, if we should buy the house, well then maybe it's not the best time to make a decision until you both feel you're in that win-win scenario. And I think so many times it comes down to like rushing, like, okay, should we buy a house? Like, well, we disagree, so one of us is going to be the one, like, well, maybe you're called to take a step back. Wait until you both have a peace and a confidence. And even if that is one person thought you should buy the house and the other person didn't, but you prayed about it and you have a peace that now buying the house you do have a peace about, it's not a win-lose. Okay, your spouse got what you wanted and you didn't at the end of the day. That's you guys had a win-win because now you both have a peace and are on the same page. You guys, I think you could tell from this video, I'm super passionate about these topics. And I'm super passionate about marriage and believing in these lies that can literally destroy families and marriages. I hope that one of these lies was a new concept to you that you can talk about with your spouse and think about. I know even though Matt's not here right now, I've been really convicted and I've been thinking about a lot of these things and what they mean for our marriage. Is there any love lies that you guys can think about that you believed in your marriage and after being married for a little while have come to terms with probably wasn't the truth that you were functioning off of? If so, I would love to know. Drop a comment. Please remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and if you would like to talk about the 9 lies or just anything regarding Faith Marriage Country, go ahead and send me a line at our email, faithmarriagecountry@gmail.com. Thank you guys for watching. I am excited to do more videos like this in the future. See you later.